Welcome back, America. The southern border crisis continues to rage on, with dangerous drugs flowing across the border to family units who sometimes travel hundreds, if not thousands of miles to be here, often in the company of the cartels. But freedom isn't free, especially as the Mexican cartels continue to traffic women and children through the border, an issue that seems to be forgotten. Our next guests, though, have not forgotten at all. They've been on the front lines of so many great investigations, including this one, and we're glad to be joined by them right now. Dr. Shea Bradley-Farrell is the president of the Counterpoint Institute, and beside her tonight is a good friend of mine, Christopher Farrell, her husband, who serves as Judicial Watch's Director for Investigations and Research. He's a master muckraker. I'm really proud of both of them. They join us now. Shea, Chris, great to have you on the show.
Hey, John, thank you so much.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I often think that we tell the border too often in numbers and statistics and not enough in the incredibly powerful human stories of what is a humanitarian crisis. You've done this incredibly well. Shea, tell us a little bit about some of the human stories that you've gathered.
Yeah, John, it's actually a human rights crisis as well. I spoke to a few emergency services professionals working in the processing centers down near, between Eagle Pass and Del Rio. And I was astounded by the number of stories that I got of sex trafficking. These professionals working in those facilities had tears in their eyes telling me about the young women, the women, also children, female children who have been raped by the Mexican cartels. John, people have to understand, in order for someone to come across the border illegally, they must collaborate with the brutal cartels. And what this guy said to me, this big burly guy with tears in his eyes, is why is our government facilitating this? And I'll leave you with this thought. He said, these young women, these teenagers, these children that have been abused, they're going to now be in our schools, in our communities, and they have become the problem of the United States. He said the sociological, the emotional impact of this crisis is going to extend for years and years.
Great point.
Absolutely. Well, and Chris, John is absolutely right. The humanitarian side of this, the stories being told shed a different light on it than the facts and the figures. But the facts and the figures do matter because they anchor the whole conversation. Do we have any idea how prevalent this problem is when women come here? When women come here, do we have those numbers?
I don't have hard numbers, but it's certainly an epidemic. And the fact what Shea has described is, it's not the outlier. It's not an unfortunate anecdote or one sort of a one-off story. It's not a snapshot like Lake and Riley that everyone focused on. This is the day in, day out crisis at the border. And look, what Biden and Mayorkas have done to deconstruct and take apart our border and the entire process of dealing with people coming into the country is criminal. And I say that advisedly. I've been dealing with borders for 40 years. As a second lieutenant, freshly commissioned in 1983 to now, I've been on the southern U.S. border. I've been on the east-west German border. I've been in East and West Berlin. I've been in Honduras and Guatemala. I've spent a lot of time, the last 20 years of Judicial Watch, working on border issues. And what they've done now, what Biden and Mayorkas have done, is the largest, second only in 1947 when India and Pakistan split and 14 million people were forced to move. They have created a migration crisis, and they are feeding into the exploitation of people. This is a crime against humanity that merits being tried at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. That's how bad. This is what they've done knowingly and deliberately.
It's mind-numbing. Shea, I want to ask a little bit about the point-to-point human trafficking operation, because the cartels take these young women and these unaccompanied minors right to the border, and then Joe Biden's nonprofits and government agencies pick them up, and they make it basically a stem to stern. What is the experience like when a young woman or a unaccompanied minor is in the custody of the cartels?
It's a terrible experience. In the word of a Border Patrol agent to me, They are put in stash houses, drop houses that are actually on our side of the border, John. And these are places where bad things happen. And I've seen some, I've taken pictures in some. Women are raped, they are beaten there, children are beaten as well and raped. They are also exploited for more money so that their families in the United States will give more money if they're held here by the cartels. Cartels are brutal organizations. And I wrote a story on this issue called Who Will Tell Her Story? It was out in the Daily Signal a couple of days ago. And that's the point. Nobody will tell the story, John, except for outlets like you guys who actually have a heart for America and for people coming here thinking they're going to have a better life. That was why the guy I talked to, the big burly guy, had tears in his own eyes. He says he can see the trauma, besides the fact of the physical examinations that they give these girls, these women, and see that they've been raped and brutalized. He sees the trauma in their eyes. And John, that's the thing. Why won't the Biden administration, why won't the mainstream media tell the truth about this?
You have human barcoded and tagged like livestock.
Yeah. They wear barcodes so the cartels can keep track of where they are and how much money they owe. And they're going to be paid, whether it's in money or sex or in indentured servitude, like livestock, like Chris said.
They pay for it somehow. Chris, obviously fixing this problem should start at the beginning before they even come. But once they come here, if they have been victimized, there needs to be a plan for the psychological care, the medical care for them once they get here. Is there a plan in place when there is a woman or a child who's been victimized and they arrive here?
The short answer is no. I mean, remember, this is the same administration that months ago, it was documented, had already lost all accountability for 85,000 children.
Right.
They're gone. No one knows where they are. That number probably now is upwards of 100,000, just given the sort of the track of how the statistics were working. And they know that they're gone. They know. So within the Health and Human Services, the organization, or the office is called ORR, Office of Refugee Resettlement. They know that these kids are gone and lost and unaccounted for. And where's the accountability? Congress did the usual 10-second soundbite hearing, and then everyone kind of shrugged and walked away. We are putting hundreds of thousands of children at risk for exploitation, and apparently no one gives a damn.
And can I add to that
Please.
I heard over and over again in my interviews of residents on the border that they were gut punched by the fact that Mayorkas was not even brought up to trial in the Senate. The fact that Democrats and Republicans from our Congress come down there to talk to them, they're given hope, thinking something's going to happen, and they are so disheartened. They say nobody will listen to them. And, I keep saying this over and over, but no American should have to live this way, and we should not be facilitating a brutal crisis of human rights at our border.
Shea and Chris, you have done such a great public service with all the things you're bringing attention to. The first thing people used to see when they came to the country, Statue of Liberty at Ellis Island today, the first thing they see is a rape tree. That is unacceptable for this great country. You have such great work to bring that to our attention.